This is the front desk.
Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Kraken Backs podcast with your hosts, Dr. Terry Wyman and Dr. Spencer Barron. How you guys doing this morning?
Very good, Lance. How are you?
All good, bud.
Good to hear. So today we are joined by Dr. Grace Hameister. Dr. Grace Hameister is a concierge doctor who has been in practice for over 20 plus years in natural, integrative, and chiropractic medicine. When she isn't helping clients, she is a podcast host to her show, Uncommon Medicine. How are you doing this morning, Dr. Grace?
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
See, wasn't that good, Grace?
That was fantastic. That was
Yes.
an excellent intro, Lance. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So Grace, great to have you, and great to see you again. It's been a couple of years, but you look fabulous.
Thank you, darling. I appreciate that as always.
I love her.
Yourself, actually.
I love your eyebrows. You have the coolest looking eyebrows, by the way.
They're real.
All right, Grace, you gotta tell my my Southern Florida host how you and I came into being.
Well, Terry was a hoe. For real.
Hey,
and this will all make sense really quickly.
You know who
this is really a true story. True story.
Wait. You know who my engineer is, so
it's his son.
I know. But Terry was a completely different kind of hoe. And let me explain.
Yeah, don't worry. I turned my ears off on most of these.
We met. Actually, Terry Wyman is the reason I became a chiropractor. We met when I was a professional water skier, and he was wearing his HO gear, which said "ho" down the side of his leg. So yeah, which is why he's a hoe. But yes, I was a professional water skier. I worked at SeaWorld in San Diego, Cypress Gardens in Florida. And because of Terry, I won world championships in 1993. And I met him at the Bud Pro Tour in Minneapolis. My doubles partner had injured himself. What was it? A week before. He had to go and compete, and 3 weeks before we had to compete at doubles. And just kind of like, pairs ice skating, a guy and a girl doing lifts, the guys behind like you see in the water ski shows. So he was doing a Mobius, which is a full twisting backflip off of the jump, lost his air position sense and landed on his head and snapped his neck forward. And he couldn't even put his fingers together to make the OK sign, which we all know as the C6 nerve root. But at the time, though, all we knew is we couldn't compete. And we just said, well, let's just go to Minneapolis anyway. And that's when Terry had just gotten started creating an integrative platform for athletes at all of the Bud Pro Tour stops. So it was him, a PT, and an MD, and he worked on us. And I was actually slated to go to dental school, and I was working at SeaWorld, and I worked in a dental office for like 2 hours, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this right now. I can't do this. I felt like I was there for 8 hours, and I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I spoke with my boss. His name was Tom Weber, and he's the guy that put together the Bud Pro Tour too.
I've heard that name a long time.
Right? I had to think about it hard too. I was thinking about things this morning. I'm like, oh my God, what was his name? Yeah. Right, so in any case, he's like, I know this chiropractor. He's in Thousand Oaks, and I was in San Diego, and I'm like, oh, chiropractor. I don't, I come from Wisconsin. We don't do that stuff. And when I got there and I got to his office, I recognized him immediately. I was like, oh my God, you're the guy. And he's like,
the guy.
Yeah, I'm the guy. I'm like, it's because of you. You fixed my doubles partner, and we won the world championships the next week. And I was in his office for 8 hours, and it felt like 2. So I knew I'd found my home.
Oh, that's great. That is great to hear. So go ahead, Terry. Were you gonna come back with that hoe thing? Or you gonna clear that up?
No. She actually put it. I have a funny story like that. We were in Texas, and we had to go from the event to a rodeo because Coors Light was sponsoring us, and they're also sponsoring the rodeo. And one of the athletes for the rodeo that wanted us to come by and help some of the athletes goes, "Hey, can you come work the rodeo? But you're gonna have to change your outfit." And I go, "This is all I got." HO was sponsoring us, and that's all I got. Oh, here, take this card, go down the boot bar and get some jeans and stuff. We'll take care of the cost if you come and help us. So I walked in the boot barn wearing what Grace described as the hoe. Nobody would talk to me because I was racing bikes at the time also, and I had shaved legs. So I have shaved
Well, you
legs.
have to realize these are neoprene, skin tight water ski shorts.
Yeah, yeah.
That they're like biking shorts, but they're thicker.
Yeah.
So you're just like walk like a robot when you're in them, and they just had a big old HO on the side of it. Oh, and don't forget, this was at the time when neon was really
It was like
popular.
bright
So it was probably
pink.
like chartreuse green
No,
and pink
it was
or
pink. It was
something.
pink and yellow.
Oh, there you go.
And I walk in the boot barn, and they avoid me like the plague.
That's so weird.
Yeah, so yeah.
That's why you're fabulous.
Go ahead,
Dr.
Spencer.
Grace. I want to ask.
Yeah.
I want to get on track because I have this visual that's really grossing me out right now about my co-host here.
Hey, water skiers look great. So don't go there.
No, I'm talking about shaved legs and a pink neoprene. I don't want to look at. I want to picture Terry like that. Anyway, how did a chiropractor get started as a functional medicine doc? What turned you into that?
It was just a natural progression. I before water skiing, I was the first Olympic level rhythmic gymnast in my state, and
Ooh.
I earned the right to go to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Wow.
And when we were there, we had nutrition courses, and an actual nutritionist would talk to us and the chefs would show us things, and then we'd go and like do other sports with some of the other athletes who were there. Like we did learn taekwondo with the taekwondo team, and it was a lot of cross pollination happening. And I remember at the time I was like 13, 14 years old, and they told us in 10 years from now 5% of the foods you eat haven't even been invented yet. And that just stuck with me. I was like, damn, it just blew my mind to think about it. And now look at it. You walk around in the grocery stores, look at all the power bars, look at all the different kinds of water, look at, like things that you're eating now, 5% of the things weren't even around 10 years ago. So I've always kind of been a geeky scientist, and nutrition and biochemistry and how the body can function at the cellular level translates out into the big picture. And our body is so full of so much data that is not looked at in the medical paradigm. It's just not. So I mean, there's gut tests that you can do by looking at stool samples and urine and saliva testing and hair testing, and it's not done because the insurance companies don't have it on their checklist. So I'm not interested in obviously doing just that paradigm. That's why we chose this road in the first place, the trailblazing, natural path to things. And if I want to be really truly objective, like I am also a geeky scientist, I did cancer research and immunology before I graduated in undergrad. So science, the lab, looking at things at that tiny level, and then looking at how that affects the big picture. That's how it all came together. It was just a natural progression. I've kind of, let's be real. Chiropractors have been doing functional medicine before there was a term called functional medicine. We've been doing this forever. And now the MDs are finally getting off their butts and looking at this and saying, oh, I guess these last 20 to 40 years of double-blind randomized trials, oh my goodness, they are valid. So let's do this now too and call it something else so that these guys don't look as good as they should. Just call it like it is. It's true. We've all been doing functional med for years. I mean, look at guys like Brimhall. He was showing people how to do blood analysis with microscopy decades ago. So it's not like I got into it. It's just like I've kind of always been doing it, and it's just a natural progression of how we can be most effective.
Dr. Grace, how long have you been a chiropractor for? How?
I graduated in 1999.
Nice. So do you obviously remember well, because it wasn't that long ago when medical doctors were saying vitamins don't work.
Right.
Or
they still say that.
nutrition doesn't count.
They still say that. Yeah.
Well, they say that about chiropractic adjusting.
Right. You should be in the Midwest.
Yeah. Really,
It's a whole different ballgame of seeing. You want to hear a really great story?
Of course.
I went in with a patient of mine as not only his advocate but also his physician. I know he had a fractured vertebra, and he really wanted to use insurance to do the imaging because I don't take insurance. I'm a
Mhm.
cash practice. I
Good.
can refer him to a different company, but that wouldn't be under his plan, so we had to go through his primary. So I went to go with his primary, and I come from California. I practiced there for 18 years. I would go in and speak with. I worked with MDs all the time in Beverly Hills,
Mhm.
so doing pre and post operative care. I was that person. So I walk in in this clinic with this MD here.
Mhm.
The guy has his back to me the entire time, talking or writing things down on his on his desk. I'm looking at my patient. I'm sitting like kind of behind, um, next to the patient, but parallel to him, and the MD is writing on his desk. He never turns around and looks at me. He's talking and asking questions, writing things down, and then when he's about to do the exam, he turns around and looks at me and he says, "You can go now."
Oof. Wow.
And it was I was literally, like, stunned.
He knew
It my
you were a
face went
chiropractor, though.
yeah, 'cause
Yes, from the
and we
beginning.
were speaking medicine the whole time. I was talking about
Mhm.
nerve roots, and I was talking about his anatomy, and I was talking about how he was injured and where and when and why, and the patient was asking me to do these things too, and
Mhm.
I was speaking high level medical speak. It's not like I was
Mhm.
just winging it. And it was embarrassing for the profession, honestly, on
What was
his
your
side.
response to
My
him when he
response,
said that?
oh, Terry, this is not an easy one for
I
me.
was waiting for this one.
Mm.
I'm like the Hulk, literally.
Yeah.
I was ready to go smash, but I kept my banner face on so that I would not embarrass my
Right, right.
patient because he's an elderly guy, and you could see he was
Yeah.
mortified. He was just
Mm.
mortified,
Mhm.
and so I graciously got up, gave him the biggest stink eye he's ever seen, and I kept my
Mhm.
banner face on and went out the
Mhm.
room, and then we went to somewhere else and got the care he needed. It was
Wow.
bullshit. So I completely honor the many relationships I have with excellent physicians in every class of
Mhm.
thought.
Yeah.
From quantum physicists to MDs. I am truly an integrative professional.
Mhm.
So when you still see stuff like this, it's frustrating because I can tell you what, I know a whole lot more than that man will ever even come to. I've forgotten more than he'll come to even know about some of
Mhm.
these functions. And so, yeah, I do remember very much when MDs said that vitamins didn't work. And I can tell you what, we still have a long way to go.
Well, I love your energy because it's the kind of energy we need in this profession to drive it forward. Because I coined this term a while back called professional prejudice.
Mm.
People always talk about minorities as prejudice, religious, and
Mhm.
color and creed, whatever. But nobody talks about professional prejudice,
Mhm.
and you just lived it. And to be artful in your response. We get angry, but at that point, we need to focus on how we can help someone who is ignorant understand that we are a viable healthcare,
Right.
and that's
Right.
why you're on our program because
Well,
you
I
know.
hear that, and thank you. And the thing that has always driven me since I was a kid,
Mhm.
I chose a sport that no one's ever seen. Who's done rhythmic gymnastics?
Yeah.
Like I was one of the first ones to ever even attempt it, and
Mhm.
provided the trailblazing, path
Right.
for people in my state to even do it. So I've always been one to, be inspired by people telling me what I can't do. One of my favorite phrases is "Watch me."
Yeah.
That's great. That alone is motivating.
Oh.
Good to
Mhm.
hear that.
After I
Yeah.
take a nap. To refuel myself. I take a nap,
I
I'm like,
love
"Watch me."
I love naps.
Yeah. I usually say it with a whole lot more colorful language
Look.
though, but I'm trying not to curse on your show because
Oh,
it's not
Oh,
entertaining for me.
you're welcome to be you. That's all we want. We want
yeah.
you to be you.
We
Are you sure?
Oh
we
yeah,
can.
I know you. I'm okay with
Okay,
that.
good. Alright. Now we have permission. It's
Yeah.
fucking on, people. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not a shit talking jock for nothing,
Yeah.
I've been like this my whole life,
You,
but I will
you
reel
should
it
have
in.
heard.
I
You
will
should have
reel it
heard You should have heard Erin Brockovich. I mean, she just unleashed all sorts of words on that. And I go,
She and I
oh,
would
this
be
is good.
really good
Oh
friends.
yeah, you
Yes,
would be.
Had
yes.
we met in a different place, I would actually love to meet her the next time I come out to California because I am certain that she and I would move some mountains together too.
Hey, whenever you come out, I'll hook it up.
Awesome, awesome. And I did
So,
just listen to that episode, it was great.
Oh, thanks. I mean,
okay.
that's what we want. We want yeah, part at least speaking for myself, but I know Dr. Spence is the same. We want authenticity. We don't
Yeah,
want a infomercial just spewing out a something that is on a script. We want authenticity. And I
yeah.
and that's the one I was so excited to finally. I waited to invite you for a while until we kind of got our ducks in a row because I wanted you to just blow the doors down.
Thank you.
One thing I'll say, Spence, is when her and I actually went on a lecture circuit together, and we actually were a team. And oh my god, we had so much fun! But it's amazing. This woman, what's in her brain? I would need a truckload. I mean, she blows me away, and half the time I felt like I was on this lecture circuit just to. I had a name at the time to bring validity to what her brain actually could produce,
Hmm.
but a lot of time I just got out of her way, and she just took off.
Dr. Grace,
Oh, yeah, and
oh,
you gave me the ability to finally do that,
Yeah.
as a woman in this market.
yeah.
I was silenced,
Mm.
Oh.
period. I was the one stuck in the back of the room. I'm like one of the biggest lecturers that we had who is huge in the sports industry, who I'm not gonna mention names, but you guys will all know who he is. It was a really awesome experience being with him, but anytime he didn't know how to do something that he knew I knew how to do, he would make me go outside of the room to help the person instead of bringing me to the front and say, "Hey, Dr. Grace, you know how to do this. Let's show everybody." And that's Terry, that's what you did. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Mm. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and that's a problem. A lot of time, what Grace would do, she would come up with these protocols, and then they would call it their own. And I'm like, hey, you didn't come up with that. That's Dr. Grace. And so there's a lot of time that we would do a lecture, and people would ask a question, and I'm like, I don't know, but I know somebody does.
Right, 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 and yeah, and you didn't make
So,
me go outside to answer the question,
No,
so you would look bad.
no,
Yeah.
so,
no.
so I have a question actually for you, Dr. Grace. Before the pandemic, what was the most common questions you were asked, or you were asked as far as nutrition, like,
Mhm.
what can I do for this? And then obviously, I would imagine that during this last 2 years, there were a different set of
Mm,
questions that you were asked professionally. Can you share those?
Sure. I would say before the pandemic, a lot of my practice has been leaning more towards stabilizing the gut brain axis. So, people would come in and have a lot, like global pain and inflammation and can't digest well or having issues being able to eliminate or, um, having a lot of hormone problems, stuff like this. And so I was doing a lot more related to stabilizing the cranial nerves, stabilizing the vagus nerve. That's been a big one that, a lot of people were getting discombobulated, I would say. And mostly because of the toxic debris in our food. And so being part of the movement of understanding where the access to the toxic debris is coming from and stabilizing that's been my biggest thing almost I would say for almost the last 10 to 15 years. I created a trademark cleanse and since doing that, that's just opened the doors to learning even more about how insidious all of this stuff is and how the brain and the gut are one thing. In fact, that not only that, but taking into that, the chakra system with it. All these things together are a huge, huge, huge asset to looking at all three components. So, frequencies and quantum physics and figuring out how to get all these things to coalesce is basically what I've been doing. And honestly, that hasn't changed much since the pandemic. It's just when you look at it, almost 70 to
mm,
80% of your immunology and your neurology is in your gut.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when you're stabilizing that, getting, a good sense of true functionality there, you're going to have a working system that gives you a lot more power.
So there's that was a great explanation, and it was deep. So for the average listener, that would probably come up and ask you, "Hey, how do you're a oh, you do nutrition? How, I
Right.
need to lose weight. How can I lose weight? But I've been trying on 50,000 different diets." And then I would imagine during the pandemic, people go, "Hey, what do I need to do to keep my immune system up?" But
Mhm.
really for you, it's at the core, and it's balancing the chemistry, the body's chemistry naturally. But the way you identify those things, you mentioned something really pretty cool, and that is the insidiousness of what people are consuming. What does that actually mean in regular person's terms?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I'm glad you asked this question because this is exactly what I'm diving deeply into now. I'm starting a food tech company, and it's called
Mhm.
Food Fixer. And the reason I'm starting it is because for over 20 years in my private practice, I've seen that the top four killers in modern medicine, right? Diabetes, heart disease, obesity, cancer, they
Nice.
all have one thing in common. They are all preventable and potentially reversible just by eating the right food. Unfortunately, most of the foods we eat have toxins in them, and most people don't even know it. So the
Mhm.
question is what to eat and how. So that's where Food Fixer comes in. So I'm creating an app to start with. It's going to be a free app that you sign into. You fill out our little questionnaire kind of thing. Put in all your specs and your data, and we spit out a grocery list for you to get. So it will actually be like, say you just survived cancer or you just had a heart attack and you don't know what to eat or how, because you're not getting all that information in a lot of really detailed ways from your MD or the nutritionists, right? Everything is still like people are still Googling it, including the professionals. And that's just bullshit. We have to do better than that. We
Right.
should be doing better than that. If I have endometriosis or I have psoriasis, you're just going to Google it to see what foods can help you, right? No, 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 no. That's what Food Fixer is for. So we are creating an evidence-based central source for people to go to. We're going to have a blockchain background on it so you can't manipulate the data. And we're going to make it so that it's easy. All you do is you put in your information and you literally will get punched out a grocery list that you can then go into like an Instacart situation to be able to buy those foods that will have the most nutrients necessary to help whatever condition is that you have to heal from the cellular level on out.
I have a feeling that your experiences or your history as an athlete have very are the competitive behavior is very rooted in what you do today. So when a patient walks in the door, I feel like you think it's game time.
Oh, every time, every time.
Am I
I
right?
listen, what profession in the world can we do where you make someone better every single
Right.
time they walk through the door? Every time.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time. Even
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's I'm not even joking with this. I've never worked with somebody that and haven't gotten them at least 70% better. And then, okay, I'm like, okay, I've gotten as far as I can. Let me take you to the next Olympic specialist. Because I look at Olympians. I don't play with the softball teacher that's going with the kindergartners, right? I go to the guys and that I know are going to be able to really do something
Mhm.
that I have a gap with, and then I'll learn too.
Yeah.
But in our profession, we have that awesome facility to literally help every single person that comes through our door. And if you're not reading and if you're not on top of the latest technology and information, that's on you, man, because I'm gonna be the one to do that, and I make sure that every patient that I see gets 100%, if not more. Absolutely.
Dr. Gray, I love what you're saying. I would like to have some of your personal testimony on an opinion article that was in the Wall Street Journal. And mind you, it was
Okay.
an opinion. It was an opinion, but boy, I'll tell you, it delivered a point across. And the comment was, is obesity really a genetic thing? Is obesity a mental thing? What is obesity? And what they described is, could obesity be that the fact that 50 years ago a tomato this big could be full of nutrients, packed with good quality, less chemicals and so on, versus today a tomato this big or maybe two small tomatoes could provide the same amount that one did 50 years ago. In other words, are people consuming more calories because their natural inclination to have more nutrients in their system comes in a quantity that's supersized, and I'm referring to not supersized,
I understand.
soda drinks. I'm talking about supersized,
Yeah.
fruits and vegetables.
You're talking about Frankenfoods. Yeah.
Did you really? That is the coolest thing I've ever Okay, you need to trademark that or something. I've never heard anything like Frankenfoods. That is
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm gonna
Yes.
use that. I
So
promise I'll give you credit for every
Yeah,
time I
there
say
you go.
it.
thank you. Well, you better, because I just said it. Just to be clear,
Fine.
thanks.
I have a feeling if I don't give her credit, she's gonna come to Florida and kick my ass.
Yes, she will.
I actually so I have a really great I have a really great way of looking at that. And the opinion that obesity is because of the nutrients not being in actual foods that we grow anymore. Um, I would like to take that to another space, honestly. That is true. An apple now has at least 50%, if not less, of the nutrient value that it did even 25 years ago, because our soils are depleted and we don't farm in ways that will help to replenish that. Although that's starting to change, agriculture and sustainability and the green approach to foods and our what gets to our plates, including how animals are treated too. That we're finally starting to shed a light on this in a way that is creating action steps rather than just saying, "Oh, that kind of sucks, but I still like steak." Like you can't do
Right.
that. The way that this is an issue is, and why obesity is an issue, is because our foods are full of trans fats, excitotoxins, corn sugar, and GMOs. Period.
Yeah.
That's why. And our foods are food-like products. So many of the things that are in the grocery store are designed to not only keep you addicted to them, but then also reconstruct your DNA, reconstruct your neural patterning, your serotonin. Did you know there's more serotonin in your gut than there is in your brain?
Yes. Yeah. I knew
Okay.
that. Oh, yeah.
And so
But
by taking 5-HTP to get past the blood-brain barrier, doesn't matter if you're already sucking on a fructose, high fructose corn syrup, and MSG. I mean, these are the reasons that we have the obesity. I mean, come on. We're now at 40% obese in our country. And you can't tell me, not one person can tell me that just by changing your diet and just by eating food right, you'll be fine. If that was the case, we wouldn't be rising to the 40% mark right now. This is not a disease crisis. This is a food knowledge crisis. And
Yeah.
that's where we need to change. We need to start getting people the information that, you know, if you're using a program like MyFitnessPal, which I'm looking deeply into right now because we're kind of formulating some things sort of like that, where you can look at your macronutrients, your macros, get your protein content, all that stuff, which is great. It's all mostly weight loss management kind of a situation, right? But you still need to have the data, right? Well, the thing is, in a program like theirs, you can get the perfect macros with a grass-fed steak or a burger, right? But you can also get those perfect macros with a McDonald's burger. And that's just bullshit. You're not getting the same kind of nutrient value, and you're getting the toxic debris. And that's what's causing the neural pathways to shut down. It's what's causing the excessive reprogramming of the pancreas and all the internal dialogue that happens with the hormones. And that's what needs to change. So it's the toxic debris. That's what I was talking about earlier, the trans fats, excitotoxins, corn, sugar, GMOs. And yeah, that means that, an heirloom tomato might be 10 times bigger now, but God bless people who are at least trying to still eat that tomato. Most of our diet doesn't exist with that, and it's time that has to change.
Hey, Grace, I got a question for you. Right now, with the past 2 years COVID,
Mhm.
we know now that the number one to two people hit are obesity diabetics, and
Right.
and yet, which on one hand could be such a great opportunity now for people like you and what you're talking about to open doors, but nobody's talking about how to fix the diabetes or how to fix the obesity. And those are the top two people getting hit instead of running to a shot or a pill or something like that. to fix the symptom, which is the COVID, how do we go after the cause? And how do we change people's paradigm shift and change their brain to start thinking that? I know media is a big pusher on one side, big pharma, but the other side is how do we get people talking about the cause instead of the symptom?
Well, that's exactly why I'm starting Food Fixer,
Mm,
because there's nowhere to look for that, and it's frustrating. And people come to me all the time for this, and I'm literally grocery shopping for people.
mm,
Literally, like I'm in the store showing them how to do it. And um this is it's this has been part of our health pyramid that has a major stone missing from it. Like if you want to make the pyramids in Egypt, right? You can't do those without that one that's in the center. Well, right now, our food paradigm has been missing this particular stone for a very long time. And it's the same situation as big pharma. The USDA is not necessarily always our friend when it comes to giving us the data that's the most effective way for our body to actually utilize the nutrients it needs and get all of them the proper way. I mean, if you look at the RDA, right? The RDA gives us a list of numbers. Like for vitamin C, you should get 50 milligrams a day according to RDA. Well, you know what those numbers are based off of? The minimum required for your body to not get a disease. So
Oh,
that
good.
means that vitamin C at 50 milligrams is so you won't get rickets. That's not optimal life. That is not optimal living. That is not optimal cell structure. So people right now
mm.
are so misinformed because they're just not being shown what to do. So that's what Food Fixer is all about. When you get on this app, we're going to have a scanner where you can scan an ingredient list and pop-ups will come up. And it's gonna be gamified, so it'll be fun, like
Oh,
little
that's
faces for
great.
like if it's really good, like
Uh-huh.
awesome, and if it's not, like no, don't do it, you know, and it's gonna show like okay, if you eat this, this has been related to getting cancer. If you eat this, it's been related to macular eye degeneration. If you eat this, it increases inflammation. If you eat this, it helps to repair your pancreas. Like pop-ups will come so that people can learn that this stuff on the ingredient list is the first place you should go to
Mm.
look. That's what we're looking at. That's our main and primary focus. We're focusing on sustainability and the ingredients and which ones can help to heal your body or which ones can make you worse. The only way we're going to tackle obesity is to do this as a united front, giving people access to the data that is the food that actually will help you. And then once we can get to that benchmark, then hopefully we can start changing some laws and doing something, which is why I want to meet Erin really bad. But she'll help me. But at this point, what needs to happen is just an evidence-based central source.
Mm.
So you're not just Googling it and then having some guy next to you say like, "Well, I heard tomatoes suck." Well, I heard tomatoes are great. Well, according to the science, this is what you should have, and and it's delicious.
Yeah.
Just because it's actual real food that's not full of all of the stuff doesn't mean you're not going to have an amazing experience and an
Great.
amazing fulfilled, eat this, not that. I've been doing that for years. Don't take the Doritos, have these cassava chips that taste exactly the same. They just don't have all the shit in them. Like that's what I've been doing. And so I've got like dozens and dozens and dozens of companies that I refer to all the time that have amazing foods that help to actually repair the body rather than break it down. And that's what we're going to have to start making a dent on obesity, on diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all of them.
So, Grace, until this amazing app is, and I'm gonna be downloading the thing for sure. Until that thing happens, what is something that somebody listening today that light bulbs are popping and they're going,
Mhm.
oh my god, how can they start today? That first baby step, getting them in the right direction until this app comes, and we hope that they're running by the time the app comes and they can just take off. So
Yeah.
what are some tips they can start today to change their paradigm of looking at food different? How can they help until they get this app where they show it at
Mhm.
the label? What can they do today?
Well, the first thing I always start with is do a food journal.
Mm,
What is your baseline? Like, how do you eat? What do you do? I'm like, people say to me, like, well, I eat really great. I'm like, I'll see if you do or not.
Right.
And what can I just say too? Anytime I go anywhere where I've worked with a bunch of people, they all just like kind of take their food and like hide it behind their face, because they see, oh, like, she's coming, she can look at our stuff. I'm like, honestly, I don't give a shit. Like, eat whatever you want, but I'm not going to judge you externally. That's just rude. That's just rude. No, no. But what I would recommend is seriously start with a food journal for 2 weeks. And what I always tell my people is, um, you want to write down what you eat, the time you eat it, what the brand is. So, like, if you have a bag of chips, what kind are they? Or if you have a burger, what kind is it? And any drinks or snacks. So basically, anything you put in your face. Write down whatever you put in your face, and write down the time it is and what kind it is. Okay, and that will start to give you a good indication of the kinds of foods that you're ingesting, and how many plant-based things are you getting? How many probiotics are you getting? Are you having, what kind of sugar are they? Are they real sugars, or are they artificial ones like aspartame? Or this first bit is where I start with everybody. And that the app's going to start in the same way and just give you a profile of like, oh, you need a little work on this part, or oh, great job on this part. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
the first place is that. And then second, start going through your foods at home and just look at the ingredient list first. I don't care how much protein is in it. I don't care about the calories. I don't care about the sodium. I don't care about any of that. The first place you need to look at any label anytime ever is the ingredient list. And if it doesn't do what Jack LaLanne said, which is, if God didn't make it, don't eat it. That's the easiest way to look at this. So if you can't pronounce it, if there's corn in it, if there's hydrolyzed things, hydrogenated things, MSG, monosodium glutamate, and if the ingredient list is longer than the almost damn where your label is, put it down. Just put it down. It's not supposed to go in your face. It's not going to help your body in any way, shape, or form. So for after the ingredient list, then the next place you look is the sugar content. You want to try to get 5 grams or less on that label. So that's my primary thing to look at. First of all, look at the ingredients so that there's nothing that if you can't pronounce it and there's corn in it, just put it away.
Mm.
And then second, if there's 5 grams, that's optimum. 10 grams, more than 10 grams, no. And that's an excellent place to start. Just by taking corn out of the diet alone reverses weeks and months worth of damage that is happening in the body, because for every 1 kernel of corn you eat, like 1 piece of popcorn, you'd have to eat 80 omega-3 essential fatty acid pills to reverse what's going on, because corn has an 80-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. Omega-3s bring down inflammation, omega-6s increase them. Corn has 80-to-1. So not only are you putting gasoline in the fire, but it's also the number 1 most genetically modified food on the planet. And so you're looking at creating breast cancer and liver cancer. Is a direct correlation.
Hey,
So
lovely.
take out corn, look at sugar, and don't eat anything that you can't pronounce in the ingredient list.
hey, Lance.
Such good advice.
Hey, Lance, that's right there. That little thing about popcorn and all that is something we need to snip out for our post. That was fantastic. So many people go to the movies and will get the big tub of popcorn, and
Yeah.
If people just hear that snippet, whether they listen to the podcast or not, they live that snippet. I think we can help a lot of people. So,
And you know what? When people
Yeah.
are trying to diet, the first thing they do is eat popcorn because the calorie content is so low.
yeah.
And it's the worst possible thing you could do. They're like, "Oh, I just eat popcorn." I'm like, "Yeah, I know," and you're screwing your gut completely, and you're creating brain disorders too. It's crazy.
But can you clarify though? Because then there's corn, like corn chips, and then there's corn like corn on the cob, and then there's corn that is popped in oil, and also so
It's
you know
corn.
yeah, that's what I want. I want to be clear on.
That is clear. That's my point. You just said the
Yeah.
word. If it says the word corn
Yeah.
chip, popcorn, corn on the cob, corn starch, you gotta
Yeah.
look for corn starch.
Mm.
Did you realize that in Heinz ketchup, one of the first ingredients is high fructose corn
Mhm.
syrup? And they finally just changed that. So, I mean, it's everywhere. You have to look at the
It's
ingredients. But yeah,
everywhere.
people say this all the time too. Like, what about if organic corn? I'm like, it's still corn.
Yeah.
You just ruined Spencer's day.
No, I don't.
No, I'm
I
just
don't need
kidding.
it. I'm I'm the cassava guy. I
Oh,
discovered
nice.
that.
Good job.
And actually, interesting. I was going to ask you because since you mentioned that, Terry, the my conscientiousness towards diet has always been there,
Yeah,
but it got ramped up ever since I started lecturing with a Dr. Cindy Howard.
yeah.
Are you familiar with that name? Dr. Cindy Howard out of Chicago.
I am familiar with her. I don't know her very, very well. I'm more familiar
Mm,
with Dan Murphy, and he's the guy that brought all this information to the forefront. I would say back in 2003, when the at that time
mhm.
the studies were already at 20 years out at
Mm,
that time, but
yeah.
people were saying that it wasn't valid. And now here we are another 25 years later, and they're like, "Oh, I guess this is kind of valid because and he's like, "Yeah." So science and clinical study, we know, tends to not coincide all the time because we see things in human bodies every day that,
Mhm,
that the labs don't see. We actually get
mhm,
that honor of doing that, to see how things turn around, how quickly. I mean, that's not to say to go and do stuff that we're just gonna say, "Oh, let's just try things like a lab rat." No, we're looking at science that's been there, but it may not have the, authentication that some of the, peer review studies would like to see yet, although we know it works because 'cause we've been doing it for, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it was always interesting because her Dr. Cindy is going to be a guest eventually or in March, and she's a DABC or the diplomate of in chiropractic internal medicine. But her specialty was always with high risk cancer,
Mm,
autistic, and
yeah.
and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all that. And she would do the deep dive like you did, blood work, saliva, sputum samples,
Mhm.
uh, stool samples, and so on. And it was always fascinating because I thought to myself, wow, if she could help those people, imagine what she can do for the athlete or the
Oh, yeah.
person that thinks they're good.
Mm,
And that's actually what happened for me. I mean, she removed the notorious gluten and dairy from the diet against, how
Yep.
doctors suck about following
right.
directions. And I said, I can't do that. I love cheese. And but the moment I did, within 72 hours, I lost 9 pounds, and I'm in pretty decent shape. But it was fascinating with that.
Right.
You have any comments about gluten and dairy for the average listener out there?
Yeah, gluten is a lot like corn in that our wheat industry has been manipulated and changed since the 50s, the 40s and 50s. I mean, look, you got to take this back to the time when we were looking at post-war, it's starting to industrialize food, and that's where a lot of this really started. And we finally, when mom was in the kitchen using microwaves for the first time, and the woman could get out of the kitchen because we have modern technology to help us now. That's where a lot of this industrialized food like product came from, and that's when they actually started to change and manipulate the seeds so that we could start
Mhm,
growing in different ways and in bigger, more industrial ways to give people more access to the food. So it came from a good place, but then it went to a really, financially manipulated place
Mm,
too,
mm,
honestly. And we are now seeing the effects of that. We have been the lab rats of the
mhm,
food
mhm,
industry now, and
mhm,
we're starting to see the effects of this, including the issues with obesity and heart disease and everything else. So, oh, and not to mention all the female hormone disorders
mm,
that we're seeing. I've never seen so much thyroid issue, and I mean, it still just stuns me to see how many women are getting like thyroid cancer or having some sort of issue. And did you know that the thyroid, the first hormone that comes out of the thyroid is cleaved into T3 and T4. You always get the T3 and T4 tests. It's cleaved with HCl in your gut, in your stomach. Did you know that?
mhm,
mm.
So if you don't have the proper HCl balance in your stomach, you're probably not gonna have the right T4 balance and T3 balance either. And now take that on top of the fact that you have all these plastics and enzymes and chemical cofactors that are in all these food-like products that we're eating, especially fast foods. Oh my god. It's a whole different ball game. So, yeah.
So, Dr. Grace, just to translate what you said, and if you
Mhm.
don't mind doing so,
Yeah.
HDLs are obviously we
No,
know what they are,
HCl,
but for the
hydrochloric acid. HC Yeah,
HCl, I'm
HCl
thinking,
in your
where did
gut.
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, got it.
HCl is in your stomach, and that's the acid that helps to break things up. It's an enzyme that's in your stomach,
Mm.
just your stomach, not
Hmm.
your whole gut, just your stomach. When people have H. pylori, that's a bacteria that grows and that can create ulcers in the stomach,
Mm.
and that is an issue that can happen with an imbalance of the HCl stuff too. But that's naturally in your stomach, and that is the factor that breaks up T3 to T4.
Got it. And why is that important for the average person?
It's important for the average person because we've been seeing that with a microbiome and an alkaline deficient system, that particularly has an impact on how well your body has HCl in the proper amounts and in the proper ways that can affect how you can have the right metabolic process for your thyroid.
Can you elaborate on why an alkaline diet is so advantageous and versus acidic?
Yes, I can. And thank you for asking that question. People don't ask this question, and it's so important. I learned this, God, at least a decade ago from an amazing woman. Her name is Donna Gates, and she created a book called The Body Ecology Diet. And I worked hand in hand with her for a little while. And she's been talking. She's not a physician, so people never gave her tons of street cred in a medical way, right? But as a person who sold a ton of books, she's valid and valuable. And the I learned a ton from her when it came from this. And where alkalinity is really super important, it comes in two different ways, two different reasons. Okay. So the first reason is a pathogen or a bad guy, like a virus or a bacteria or a cancer cell or anything that, is a pathogen, it cannot grow in an oxygen rich or an alkaline rich environment. They kill it. So the more oxygenated you can be and the more alkaline you can be, the more you'll have a fighting chance to not even have these problems at all. Which leads us back to that corona question you were asking about, right?
Hmm.
So the more alkaline you can be, the less that little bugger can grow in the first place. So that's one thing. Now, then there's another part of pH and alkalinity that's very important that people don't recognize too. Now, if let's go back to 7th grade science just for a second, because I love this stuff. I'll take you on the ride. You'll get it. Just hang in there with me, okay? So, when you're looking at the pH scale, right? Okay, so there's acid on one end, like an battery acid, right? And there's alkaline on the other end. And so one end is 0, acidic, the other end 14 for alkaline or base, right? And in the center is neutral, 0, right? Okay, so if you're eating meat, your body needs acid to break that down. Okay? If you're eating a starchy vegetable like a potato, your body needs alkaline or base to break that down. Like that's bile, right? Okay. So now if you meat and a potato, now you're on two ends of the spectrum, acid and alkaline. Put them together, you get 0, 0. That means nothing is digesting. Neither chemistry is allowed to work because it cancels itself out. So now you're getting bloating, you're getting
Mm.
indigestion, you're getting brain fog, you're not able to poop, you're not digesting well. So alkalinity, not only having an alkaline rich environment to help to fight off pathogens or bad guys, but then to have a good biome so that you're digesting properly. How you combine your food makes a big impact on how the body can actually digest it and give you the nutrients you need at the same time.
That's great. And we also realize that having an acid-based medium or system is really a pool for cancers and infection and all. They live
Hmm.
and thrive in
Yes.
that kind of
The more
environment.
acidic you are, the more at risk you are for everything.
So, Dr. Terry, do you think we should have Dr. Grace back on again?
I think we need to have her back on when her app is done so we can walk people through this
Yeah,
damn thing. Because,
I would love that.
yeah.
we could talk to her for like, I could talk to her. Well, I have talked to her for like hours. And
You mean you could listen to her
correct,
for
correct,
hours?
correct. Yeah, I don't get much
What,
talking in when I'm around there
what,
because half the time I'm like, I'm so stupid.
that that I need to
That's
see. I need
true.
to see that.
That's true.
But Dr. Grace, thank you. You have been a fantastic world of knowledge, especially in, basic understanding of nutrition and clearing up some of the confusion, or a lot of the confusion that people have, and what is marketed out there is to really, sway people to a, unfortunate circumstance. But thank you. Thank you
Hey,
again.
and I want to end with this. Hey, you got people thinking, and I hope, because we have this world right now where it's like, take a pill, you're fine. And that's not the world. And I got people coming going, how come when I'm in Europe, I can eat anything I want and I feel great? When I come here, I feel like shit. So we need to change people's thought process from farm to table and all the stuff. But you're a great resource. How do people listening to this learn more from you? How do they find you?
Well, you can definitely go to foodfixer.com. That's FOODFI capital X capital R.com, foodfixer.com. That is, it's still in its infancy. We are in seed round funding right now. I'm actually negotiating with two different investors, which is really exciting. The attorneys are on it at the moment. So we're waiting for the funds to come through so we can get our minimum viable product out, the MVP. It's in process right now. So you can go to Food Fixer to learn more there, or you can go to uncommonmedicine.com. That's my podcast. And it's been in a brief little hiatus because I've been kind of involved with, starting a tech company. So we'll be jumping more into that too. But yes, uncommonmedicine.com or foodfixer.com. And you can get in touch with me through email in either space.
So great.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Grace, always a pleasure. And
Yeah.
you've been not only a great friend, but you've been a big mentor for me as far as just pushing my knowledge, because your brain is just incredible.
Well, that is such an honor for me to hear, Terry, because I've been on several other podcasts, and I always tell my origin story, and I always tell them about you
Aw,
and where your office is, because without you, I wouldn't be here, man.
aw.
And I do. I love you, and I'm really grateful for what you've introduced me to, and I've always found that you've helped to push me to learn more too. So thank you for saying that. And Spence, it's an honor to meet you as well. Thanks so much.
Well, you
Thanks.
are going to come back, when this does.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not even going to let you out. You're going to be another guest, and so when this stuff is coming to fruition, you're going to text me, and we're going to get you back on because.
Done.
And if there's any listeners that want to invest in this woman,
Yes,
she's a
please.
guarantee. So help this woman out to help millions of people out there that need her
Thank
help.
you. Thank you for that. We're like all that we're waiting on right now is for those funds to drop, because I've got the team ready. I've got guys that are designing it. We've got all of everything. We've got a wireframe and everything ready. We're ready to go. So we're looking at starting this within the next few weeks and getting into the actual revenue stream probably in about 8 months from now. So this is happening, and
Ah,
we're gonna change people's lives, and
I
we're gonna
hope so.
change and disrupt the food industry in a way that's gonna give us access to the information we deserve.
All right. On that note,
Very
Grace,
good.
have a fantastic, fabulous day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Kraken Backs podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and make sure you follow our Instagram at the Kraken Backs podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday and Thursday. See you next time.